Joined now by Senator Brian Schatz. He's a Democrat from Hawaii. And Senator, your reaction to the ruling?
Well, Chris, it's a really exciting day. This is a good day for constitutional government, for the rule of law. It was a decisive decision. You know, one of the things that struck me in the 29 pages, they were more ambitious, less narrow than they needed to be. They wanted to sort of walk up to the line and talk about whether or not sort of looks like a duck, acts like a duck, quacks like a duck, it looks like a Muslim ban. They wanted to talk about standing, and I think they were especially irritated, if you read the decision, at the prospect that certain decisions of the executive branch are in fact unreviewable. Now, I don't have a law degree, but when I heard that the government was going to argue that the president had unreviewable authority in this matter, that struck a chord with me. And it's really consistent, not just as a legal argument, but it's sort of, it's very Trumpian in its argumentation. This idea that because he declares something to be true, that it must be true. I think the court was especially irritated by that, and I think it's a good day for our institutions and for our constitutional government.
One of the things Donald Trump has complained about in the president in the run-up to this is that the courts are political. He said again today it's political. And, you know, that is not an argument that is only made by Donald Trump. I remember as the Affordable Care Act, two Affordable Care Act cases wended their way through the courts. Lots of liberals saying that they thought the decisions were blatantly political, that it was essentially a bunch of Bush appointees who were trying to, work over the ACA. What's your response to Donald Trump denouncing this as political?
Well, I think it's really important to remember who Richard Clifton is. He's the Bush appointee in that three-judge panel on the Ninth Circuit. I was listening to the case live on your network, and Richard Clifton is a good, solid Republican from Hawaii. He was the Republican Party of Hawaii's lawyer. I know him. He is not a liberal, and I could hear him sort of trying to get to yes, but he was just not persuaded by the government. And so I think that's what's happening, is that with their own ideological disposition, their own partisan disposition, their own views on the issues, are basically standing up as a bipartisan majority in the judiciary, some of them even in states and cities, some of them within the executive branch of the federal government, and saying, look, there are some things that are more important than politics and especially partisanship, and at the very top of the list is the rule of law. And so Richard Clifton is no liberal. He may be coming from Hawaii, but he was appointed by President Bush, and he was part of that unanimous decision. So I thought that was one of the most consequential aspects of the decision.
Is there a role? I mean, someone I saw made a remark about how, the first 3 weeks of this presidency have really been defined by two of our three branches of government in many ways, the executive and the courts. What role do you see for the Senate to deal with what is now a sort of open set of very thorny and complicated constitutional legal issues?
Well, I think you're asking exactly the right question. I've been talking a lot with my colleagues and staff about this. You have institutions across the country, religious institutions, the Department of Defense, the Department of Homeland Security, states, counties, the judiciary, people, individuals, sort of as part of an uprising on behalf of constitutional government. The straggler in all of this is the federal legislative branch. And so one of the things that we're working on as we resist these nominees, as we exercise our duties under advice and consent, is to try to find that bipartisan majority to stand up as a Senate, as a legislature, on behalf of constitutional government and lawful government. It's going to take a while because we are the branch with elected officials, and it's extremely difficult for some of these Republicans, even the ones that are sort of at least alarmed, if not disgusted at what's happening, for them to get all the way to no so early in the presidency. But you can see the dam starting to break. You see Ben Sasse, you see Senator John McCain, and I don't think you can go and do battle with the whole legislative branch, not just Democrats, but Republicans, committee chairmen. Trying to bully them over time is going to backfire. I wish it would happen tomorrow morning, but I am confident that it will eventually happen.
All right, Senator Brian Schatz from Hawaii, thank you very much. Appreciate it.